Good morning. My name is Michael Barber. I'm the Director of Communications for the School District of Manatee County, and we want to thank you for being here. I know that sometimes relationships between the media and people on this side of the microphones and the cameras can sometimes be contentious, and we all realize that that's part of the professions we're in. But I just want to say, and I think you would agree, that what we're here to discuss today, the issues we're talking about today, are the kind of thing that would bring us all together, just as we come together during, hurricanes and other kind of crises and disasters. So what we're here to talk about today really is a community's worst nightmare, and we're also here to talk about what we're doing to help prevent that. So again, we thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce the people behind me so that you have an idea of who they are. I think we have a list of people who might speak. So I'm going to start with people from the school district. And if you would raise your hand when I call your name. First of all, I want to mention that Bradenton City Council member Gene Brown is here. Gene? Okay. We also have from the school district Superintendent Cynthia Saunders, Deputy Superintendent of Operations Doug Wagner, General Counsel Mitchell Teitelbaum, Director of Safety and Security Patrick Bartholomew. We have our Manager of Safety and Emergency Management Sally Hall, our Director of Exceptional Student Education Nicole Cox. We have our Chief Financial Officer Heather Jenkins. We have our Director of Student Services George Schreier. We have our Executive Director of Secondary Schools, Willie Clark. We have our Executive Director of Elementary Schools, Mike Rio. We have from the Communications Department, we have Public Records Associate Linda Lambert. We have Community Engagement Specialist Deborah Perry Gambino, and also Communications Specialist Melissa Parker. Also over here to our right is Principal David Underhill of Manatee High School. And David, we thank you for letting us hold this press conference out here this morning. Here's how it's going to work today. Superintendent Saunders has some remarks just to provide context and background, to what we've been getting questions on and what's been taking place in the year since the Parkland tragedy. And during those comments, she will provide a time for each of the law enforcement leaders that are here to say some words. And I'll go ahead and introduce those law enforcement leaders right now. They are Manatee County Sheriff Rick Wells, Palmetto Police Chief Scott Tyler, Assistant Bradenton Police Chief Paul McWade, and Holmes Beach Police Chief Bill Tokager. So again, Superintendent Saunders will have some words, then she will give an opportunity for each of these law enforcement leaders to speak, and then we'll take questions. So with that, here's Superintendent Saunders.
I know Mr. Barber probably didn't see, but one of our board members, Scott Hopes, is here also, so we appreciate his support for coming out. And I thank all of you for coming. The world as we know it, at least in terms of school safety and security, changed on February 14th, 2018. That day, 17 students and staff members were killed. In addition, 17 were wounded at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. It was the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history. Because of its proximity to us, all of us felt a closeness for the pain and the loss that took place that day. I can say with all honesty, from that moment that we learned of what was taking place in Parkland, the school district of Manatee County reached out to law enforcement, our leaders in our community, to answer to the question I know that all of you wanted to know is, what are we going to do now? Almost a year later, it has been a special honor to stand here with the partners that we have in this community with our law enforcement. We have grown together, we have learned together, With their concern, support, and dedication, I do believe that we can genuinely say that the schools in Manatee County are safer today than we were a year ago. We have made monumental strides. It started last February in the immediate aftermath of Parkland. We worked hand in hand with law enforcement to make the District of Manatee County one of the very first, if not the first, to place an armed officer in every one of our schools. We have had an armed officer each day since then, since February 27th of 2018. The state legislature also moved fast, quickly passing the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act, which was signed into law March the 9th, 2018. The School Public Safety Institute significant changes in firearm safety laws, including raising the age of purchasing a firearm, banning devices that turn a legal firearm into illegal weapons, and taking steps to keep firearms out of the hands of people suffering from mental illness. The act also created the Office of Safe Schools and appointed Damian Kelly, the director of that office. Director Kelly has been to Manatee County. He has visited some of our schools and our campuses and has provided valuable input and oversight. The act also permitted local sheriff's offices to establish the Coach Aaron Feist Guardian programs. He was a coach at Stoneman Douglas High who gave his life to save students in his care. Last spring and summer, working with Sheriff Wells and the Sheriff's Office, we initiated and implemented a Guardian program that are in our elementary schools today. With that, as a very brief introduction, I would like to invite Sheriff Rick Wells to the podium so that he can comment and give a little bit more information about our Guardian program today.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders. As you know, after the negotiations between the school board and the county, the decision was made to implement the Guardian program here in Manatee County. To date, we have successfully trained 47 Guardians, and we have 5 currently in training today. This has been a very successful partnership. I was very pleased to see the quality of applicants that we received early on. We have a lot of retired law enforcement officers. We have retired and ex-military and people that really just wanted to continue to serve their community and do what they could to protect our kids. As you know, the training is 132 hours of nothing but firearms and tactical training. There's a 12-hour component also attached to that for legal updates and law-related issues. So we have been very pleased. We have 2 Guardians here today behind me, as you can see. We continue to work with them. We will continue to train them in the summertime to help with any remedial training. And let me be clear, the training that they went through is exactly what a law enforcement officer would go through in the academy. It's intense. It's not easy. They were able to fulfill the requirements under FDLE, and we're happy to have them here. Thank you.
At this time, I would also like to invite Police Chief Scott Tyler to speak about our school SROs or comments about school security in general.
Thank you. Manatee County, I believe, is unique and special in that we have long worked very hard to come up with innovative approaches to secure our schools, make our schools as safe as possible, and this effort long preceded even the tragedy at Parkland last year. One of the things, the City of Palmetto has been unique. We've long recognized the value of having a school resource officer in every one of our public schools, and we've partnered with the school board for many years to actually have an SRO not only in our middle school and high school, but to have an SRO in our elementary school. And we think that was a right approach, a proactive approach, and we still do. Talking a little bit about an SRO and what a valuable asset or security asset an SRO is. You know, we know an SRO is a fully trained police officer, and the idea is to have that police officer assigned to a campus where, you know, that officer or that deputy actually treats that campus as a little city. They get to know the staff, they get to know the students, they get to know the physical security. They're heavily involved and directly involved in the physical security for their facility. And, you know, it's not just security either. It's pure community policing at its core. Getting to know the staff, but especially the students, creating positive relationships with the students, but also getting to know students that may be in a little bit of trouble and working with school board staff and working with parents and guardians to try to get those kids some extra attention. This is what the School Resource Officer Program truly is, and we're very fortunate, again, to have, you know, such a vibrant, positive relationship with our school board and our elected officials here, and trying to get as many SROs into as many schools as possible. We know with some funding shortages last year, the sheriff partnered with the school board in instituting a guardian program. And you know, here in Palmetto, we have 2 public schools. We also have several charter schools, and that's where the guardians came into place. But you know, we haven't really missed a beat in partnering with our guardians in our schools in Palmetto, getting out, having the officers meet them. They're going to be, you know, firsthand should, heaven forbid, we have, you know, an active threat on campus. Our officers train with them, work with them, get to know them. So, you know, we believe that whether it's an SRO or a guardian, there's a seamless security presence in our schools. You know, we also know that our schools have been proactive in taking advantage of extra funding for physical security. We've been working hard with the school board to make suggestions on beefing up physical security on campuses, and with a renewed emphasis on mental health and trying to identify students that may be in crisis or at risk. You know, we believe that we're being very proactive, and we truly look for ways to think outside the box and continue to be proactive for the safety of our students and our communities. Thank you.
I would also like to invite Assistant Chief Paul McWade to discuss SROs as well in the police department.
Thank you. The sheriff and the chief from Palmetto talked a lot about the SROs and the Guardian program. So what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about what's going on outside of the school, talking about training, equipment, and then other resources. And I'd start with training. In the last year, we made a big effort in getting our officers, every officer on our police department, trained on how to respond to an active shooter. We've also done school security assessments at every school inside of our city. And our SROs take part, as well as our patrol officers, and any type of training that goes on inside of the schools itself. We also have done agency-wide training on the School Public Safety Act and also risk orders, which Ms. Saunders had kind of touched on a little bit. One of the big things that we wanted to do, and it's not just Bradenton, it's the sheriff, it's every chief here, as we talked about getting our officers into the schools and talking with the students. One of the big things that we found out in studies is you can avert these type of things. The best way to avert it is to get information from other kids in the schools that tell you about some issues they're hearing about. They have to be comfortable enough to get with somebody, and we're hoping that's going to be our SROs or even our officers on the street. We actually altered some of our patrol plans. A patrol plan is what the officer does on a daily basis, especially when they're not handling calls. Back when I came on years ago, it was the reports that we do were short and very quickly typed or done within 5 or 10 minutes. Now you see a lot of officers on the side of the road typing on a computer. With that, what we've asked our officers to do is try to do that near bus stops or here around the school. We instituted a mentoring program where the chief has actually approved all of our officers to come into the school for about 30 minutes a week and sit and talk with the child. And that would be just really getting our officers inside the schools. We do close patrols, that's what we call them, and that's where, again, if the officers are out patrolling the area, we ask them to come into our areas of the schools as well as the bus stops where our kids are gathering. We've also reallocated Sergeant Sean O'Leary here as a part of the team for our SROs recently. Last thing I would talk about is equipment. We have enhanced the ballistic protective equipment that our SROs and officers have. We've purchased quite a few things for the patrol officer coming into, unfortunately, if they were coming into a situation. We purchased those type of things through our Bradenton Blue Foundation, and we'll continue to work with Ms. Saunders, her staff, the sheriff, and the other agencies, and anything else that we could do. Thank you.
At this time, I would like Holmes Beach Police Chief Bill Tokajer for comments. Here we go.
Thank you. In Holmes Beach, it's not new that we have SROs in the school. We've had them there for many, many years. It's been a wonderful program for us. It's not just the first line of defense, but it's also the first encounter that most of these kids have with law enforcement. They're seen as their mentors, teachers, and friends to them. It works out very well for our community. We, as the police department, our day shift goes in and eats lunch with the kids at least once a month. So my entire shift will go in and sit with the kids for lunch and just have that interaction so that they feel safe and know that we're there for them for anything that goes on, and they feel protected and safe to come to school. We appreciate you guys coming out.
Other requirements of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act included designated a district safety specialist. We have that in Director of Safety and Security, which is Patrick Bartholomew. Also, we had to complete a Florida Safe Schools assessment for each of our schools. We are in front of a high school, and bells do ring and students do change classes, so we appreciate that. This assessment was completed and submitted to the state by August 1 of 2018. Some of the things that we've been doing to ensure the safety and security and hardening of our schools. If you notice, if you go to any of one of our schools, we now have the front doors locked with a buzzer and secure system in place before anyone enters. We've upgraded and enhanced our camera systems as well as other security measures. We've also had to establish a threat assessment team at each of our schools. It was established and put in place September 1, and that, of course, is headed by Patrick Bartholomew. We've had to expand the access of school-based mental health. With that, we have increased the number of staff that we currently have, but we've also partnered with Centerstone and added 13 additional behavior therapists and mental health counselors to our existing staff. If you look at the by the number sheet that I believe was provided to you by Mr. Barber, you will see that the funding that was allowed, even though it did not cover many of the things, it certainly was a part of what was needed to add the additional resource officers, the additional guardians, as well as some of the capital needs that we're going through. One final item before we open it up for questions. Thursday marks the 1-year anniversary of the Parkland tragedy. We will ask our schools, in connection with the schools across the state of Florida, to observe a moment of silence in the commemoration of what happened that day at precisely 10:17. At this time, we will open up for questions, and I would ask that the group behind me step up, because I'm sure that all the questions are not designated for me, but we're all available to answer any questions you may have.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one thing that I think it's important to really emphasize is what you see here today with all the local law enforcement agencies represented here with the school district really is a visible symbol of the unity that we've had, not only dating back to Parkland, but actually before then. And it's really been amazing to see how everybody's worked together. So I think that says a lot about our community. But the other thing is this, that there are some aspects to school security and just the issue of security that we can't reveal. And so as you ask your questions, you know, we'll do our best to provide answers, but there are some areas that we just can't go into. That's the nature of security. So anyway, Ms. Saunders, if you want.
Yes, ma'am. I'll let, obviously you're directing that, are we directing that at Sheriff Wells or Chief Tyler?
We're going to direct
We'll
that to
let-
the City of Palmetto Chief,
Okay.
Scott Tyler.
Chief, there you go.
Yeah, I know that what MSA is elected to do in arming their SRO or their Guardian with a long gun, with a rifle caliber weapon, is a little outside the box. I'm not aware of, and I don't think Dr. Jones, the principal over there, I don't think either one of us are aware of any other school district that's elected to do that yet. Maybe more will. But, you know, first of all, there's nothing that will prohibit arming a Guardian with a rifle. Our SROs carry rifles. They may not be visibly on them at all times, but they have them, you know, secured close by. But, you know, in a crisis response, if an SRO has to go and retrieve his or her rifle, you know, it's precious seconds, even minutes. The way we looked at it, and I did talk to Dr. Jones and his staff as they were considering arming with a rifle, and what it really boils down to, my feedback to them was, why would we not want our Guardians to be as well equipped, if not better equipped, than a potential armed threat on that campus? You know, it's not, it may not be an option for all campuses. I mean, the Manatee School for the Arts also has some pretty long distances and has some wide open spaces around some of its buildings. So, you know, it's not a bad approach. There may be some other schools and other campuses where it's not really such a good approach. I really think that it will be up to the individual school or the district. I want to emphasize, first of all, that the MSA Guardians have been fully trained through the Guardian program. They've also qualified with the long gun. They've had some training with the long gun. They will continue to do that. Both the current MSA Guardian and the one that's in training now both have an extensive military career, including, you know, time in combat. So, you know, they're certainly familiar with the rifle. You know, the other thing that we've got comments on, not just the rifle, but, you know, the body armor and the ballistics that the Guardian carries. Here again, why would we not want Guardians and SROs to have, you know, the best body armor and the best ballistic protection possible? So that's an approach that MSA is used. It's a very controlled approach. It was well thought out, and you know, I think that would be up to, you know, districts and schools if they want to take that approach.
Are there plans to go back to the bargaining table with commissioners to talk about more funding for SROs, or each argument is along?
Right now, the governor, in one of their tentative proposals, is adding an additional $50 million into school safety. How that ends up being spent and the specificities will be worked out through the legislature, but they are adding additional funding. I do believe they're going to change some of the spending availability for the Guardians, but also allowing more for mental health, as well as capital dollars for school hardening. So right now they've allocated $50 million, so we'll see by the end of legislation what happens.
Does the district have a priority as to where you would like to see that money spent to get it?
I believe every district is asking for more funds. As you know, we were short about $2.5 million with just placing law officials in our campuses with the plan that we have. So no district was completely covered with enough of finances from the state to implement what was expected. So I think adding any additional dollars will definitely help with our resources so it's not taken out of our general budget.
Along the lines of what you were just saying, I know in the recent past there was a conversation about transitioning to law enforcement as primary security. What's the status of that conversation?
Well, I think, you know, even with the comments that you heard from Sheriff Wells, we've been very pleased with the Guardian program. It has worked very well for us. I do not see right now that we have a need or a reason to change. But I believe even when we had talks in the very beginning last spring, even if you wanted to have a full-time police officer in every campus, there wasn't the funding or the resources to do that. The sheriff's office didn't have the staff to do that as well, nor the police department. So I do think this works out as a really good compromise in serving the intent of the law and providing safety to our schools.
I think there's pending legislation that would allow teachers to participate in the Guardian program
Well, there was discussion about that before, but I'll defer that to Scott Hopes. Those are decisions that the school board makes, and even if that's available, those are decisions that the board will have to decide what's in the best interest. Any other questions?
Can you give any examples where the Guardians have actually done their job, maybe forwarded something, or, you know, what have they done?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm going to let Patrick Bartholomew. Patrick? Did Patrick disappear? No, yeah. There he is. Patrick is over our Guardian program. I'll let him give you an oversight of what they've worked on.
Well, I don't want to get into specifics, but there have been instances where there were some threats on campuses, and the Guardians were brought. It was brought to their attention immediately, and they went ahead and worked with school administration to go ahead and quell that threat. Any type of threat that comes on campus, these gentlemen who are in the back right there act as the primary guardian at the school. So I can't think of anything specific right now, but that's it.
So they talk to the students. I mean, did they get this information from the students? I mean,
it could come in several ways. It could come in from students, could come in from staff, could come in from Fortify Florida, which is the website that comes into Tallahassee and gets distributed to law enforcement and the schools.
You may want to just explain a little bit about how the Guardians are distributed, that they're not just in elementary schools, but also secondary.
Yeah, we have 35 Guardians right now in the elementary schools. We also have 4 Guardians in the high schools that assist with the school resource officers in the county jurisdiction. The municipalities cover their schools themselves. So here at Manatee High School, there's a couple Braden police officers, and Palmetto Police Department has their own security there with their police officers.
well, I guess the issue was, you know, they were not SROs, they were not police officers. So what is the difference, and are they working as well as a police officer was?
I would say so.
Concerns maybe from the sheriff?
No, like the sheriff had mentioned before, the training is very stringent, very demanding. 144 hours of total training. A lot of it has to do with firearms training. Absent no law enforcement authority, their mission is well defined in the state statute. It's to prevent or abate an active assailant, and that is their job. If an assailant came on this property, if it's protected by a guardian, they will take care of business. That may be something we consider in the future, but right now we're satisfied with what we have right now.
What have you seen for number of threats over the last year to our local schools? Has that been a bigger number than past?
Well, I think since the Parkland incident, we've had a lot of threats, but they were just hoaxes. Thank God they were just hoaxes, but they're treated seriously just like any threat. They're investigated to their logical conclusion, and nobody was put in any jeopardy.
Now, I'll just say briefly, I mean, it was well documented that we had several threats that came in through social media after the Parkland shooting. Each one of those were investigated by the Manatee County Sheriff's Office and also the Braden Police Department. There were several arrests also that were made because of these social media threats, and we have tried to get the point out to these kids that this is not a joke. This is not something that we're going to take lightly. If you joke about blowing up a school or shooting up a school, we're going to find you and you're going to get arrested. And we continue to try to drive that home to these young men and women. We don't want them to ruin their life and their careers and their college decision down the road because of something stupid like this. So we did have more than I would have liked. Arrests were made, and we haven't seen an increase of threats lately. I don't think we've had any in the last several months. So hopefully the message has gotten out.
With that, we do have a video that the Sheriff's Office helped us make last year to speak about threats. We will be sending that out this week as well, just to remind students that any threat made we do take very seriously. We have to investigate it to the fullest extent, and we are going to try to get in front of that with prevention. I do feel, and I know Mr. Barber had mentioned this before, we're very blessed to have such a partnership with law enforcement and our community. We were all able to work together immediately and ensure that our schools are as safe as possible. Not every district is like that, and so we are very fortunate in Manatee County. I would like Mr. Hopes to be able to have a moment from his perspective, from the school board perspective, to just speak about what he feels we've done, because he was the board chair when many of these decisions were made on how we have improved our safety and security measures. Mr. Hopes.
Thank you. Thank you. I too would like to thank all of our partners from the county commissioners, the city council members, the police chiefs, the sheriff. As you are aware, our school district was one of the first, if not the first in the state, to deploy armed law enforcement into every one of our schools within 10 days of the Parkland shooting. And we've come a tremendous distance in securing all of our schools and facilities and protecting our staff and students. And the effort continues. The effort continues in Tallahassee. It continues here in the local community as we look at additional ways to further strengthen, harden, and staff our schools for safety, and to continue to train and recurrently train our staff in how to deal with these threats. Over the next few days, the world is going to be reminded of the tragedy that we all experienced that day in Parkland, Florida. And I commend the board, I commend the superintendent and her staff as well for being diligent to ensure that when we opened our schools in August of last year, we were ready and we were much safer. So with that, I want to thank all of you also for coming out here and getting the message out. And I'm happy to take any questions if you want to wrap it up.
You kind of touched on a question of mine briefly there. If you could name any ongoing projects or future priorities or anything like that to further security.
Well, one of the things that the board did through the superintendent is we contracted with an engineering firm. I think it was probably last year, at the end of last year, and the engineering firm has been going into all of our buildings, all of our facilities to look at deferred maintenance issues, but more importantly, they are looking at the safety components of our schools, including technology, fencing, walling off, ensuring that the front office staff are protected and there are additional barriers and steps along the way. And I would defer to the superintendent on when we expect that report, but it's going to be a very comprehensive assessment of the district and its facilities that range from actually the building, the brick and mortar, and technology, including safety. Hearing no more. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Superintendent.